This is a cricket podcast.
They beat Australia.
Yes! Not just beat them, destroyed them!
Two mates obsessed with the game.
I've sat by and watched as you've developed this here obsession, Renee, and it's been slightly uncomfortable at times.
Covering all the on-field action.
Trent Boult is better than Mitchell Starc. There's no comparison there.
No doubt.
In every single aspect of life.
This is the Back of a Length podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of season 2 of the Back of a Length podcast. If you caught us last week, you will remember that Marc has decided to skip out after recording one episode of season 2. But I'm delighted to welcome Richard to the podcast. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
It is good. If you don't know Richard, he is a big cricket fan, an ex-colleague, and all over Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't follow me on Twitter because it's embarrassing. But yeah, great to be here, Renee. Good to chat with you.
Yes, my Twitter is what I call a dumping ground of thoughts I shouldn't say out loud.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine any person would be interested in all of the things that I have to say on Twitter. Like, it's part fantasy football, part cricket, part like emo punk music, part progressive Christian thought, part things I find are funny, and then like no person is interested in all of that.
But someone is interested in some of it.
Yeah.
So we have been cricket fans for a long time. We actually had a pretty good time making the first 11 book about a year ago, which we will come to a bit later. And I must say, Richard, you've always been very good with my hair chat. Oh
yeah, I mean, like I've sat by and watched as you've developed this here obsession, Renee, and it's been slightly uncomfortable at times.
Oh, what?
But good. I mean, I can't help but wonder if I were a cricketer, where would I be ranked in the great hair sort of like rankings? And then,
you're just classic middle of the road.
Middle of the road. I'll take that.
Middle of the road, good hair.
Yeah, I know Rapon. I know. Do I get a klaxon for that? Do I get a klaxon?
Yeah,
it's just when Marc's here.
No, it's actually just when I say it, and I was not going to bring up Michael Rapon this early on. But yes, that is true. Every time I say Michael Rapon, you do hear the Michael Rapon klaxon. So off to a good start. Okay, so we brought you along today to talk about the T20 World Cup, which is playing over in Australia at the moment. Now, if you caught us last week, we said, how do you win a World Cup? And the answer was, you do the basics right. You take your catches, you dominate your power play, and you find some firepower. Which New Zealand did on the opening night of the Super 12 because, would you believe, they beat Australia.
Yes! Not just beat them, destroyed them.
Someone said a mauling. It was an absolute mauling.
It was, yeah. I mean, net run rate. Here we come.
Exactly. So New Zealand actually lost the toss here and were sent in to bat. Aaron Finch saying, off you go have a bat. Finn Allen said, hello, or probably more like, hello. Kia ora. I'm Finn Allen. And came out and hit 42 of 16, including 5 fours and 3 sixes. What a start.
Yeah, I know. I was actually like, because the last few times I've seen us play Australia, I feel like we've played with a bit of fear. We're a bit reserved, a bit scared to get out. But they just went from, it was like the second or third ball that he just smoked down the ground. It seemed like Starc was looking for a swing and just couldn't find any, which interestingly Boult did. So I don't know what's up with Mitchell Starc, but it was nice for Finn Allen because he just got a bunch of half volleys.
Yeah, well, we definitely know that Trent Boult is better than Mitchell Starc. There's no comparison there.
No doubt.
In every single aspect of life.
Especially here, right?
Especially here. Here, both on the field and here on his head. So, yes, Finn Allen was eventually bowled by Hazelwood after, facing 16 balls, but really he got 42, so that doesn't really matter. Got New Zealand off to the great start that we wanted.
Absolutely. And like, I love to see just the way that both opening batsmen use their feet, especially to like Hazelwood, because like last time Hazelwood just really pegged us back, and we just seemed like incapable of scoring any runs off him. but they just like went down the wicket, took him on, and he just never got settled.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a thing of beauty.
It really was, and I think it comes back to that fearless playing that you were saying. Both these players, actually advanced down the wicket and backed themselves to get it over the fence, which is actually no easy feat at the Sydney Cricket Ground.
No, it's a pretty decent sized pitch.
Yeah,
really
I did love to see it. So Devon Conway continued on. He actually carried his bat through the whole innings, ending up on 92 off 58, 7 fours and 2 sixes. He is a class player.
I know, and he just doesn't seem like he takes that many risks. He's just like playing cricket shot. He's such a great find. Big fan of Devon Conway.
Yeah, me too. And
then if he gets out, in comes Mr. Steady the Ship, Kane Williamson.
Absolutely.
Who, I was going to say, he got a run of ball 23, which, a little slow in comparison. What's your thoughts on the old scoring speed of Kane?
Well, I would firstly like to point out that Kane Williamson did actually hit a 6 in this innings, so he can come out here and play the big shots. He's not going literally one run, one ball. He is playing aggressively. Look, I mean, they say that he's out of form. I don't necessarily agree. He needs to sort of hold over in those middle overs if Finn Allen is going to go out after the power play and take us through to sort of overs 12, 13 and then try to go big. And if he can't go big, then he might as well let the next 3 players coming in have a chance to go hard.
Yeah, I mean, and Kane actually is deceptively quick at scoring sometimes. Like, he's one of those players who just rotates the strike, and you can sort of look up and go, oh, he's striking at 170. I didn't even notice. Obviously, he was a little slower than that, against Australia, but for the most part, I think he's not in bad form. He seems to have sort of rediscovered a little bit in the last few games, really.
Yeah, thank goodness as well, because New Zealand definitely need him across the tournament. Yeah, you're absolutely right, though. New Zealand did have on Saturday in particular, they really did tick the score over consistently with their running between the wickets. We had Phillips come and go for a caught and bowled by Hazelwood. You can't have it every day, Glenn Phillips.
Yeah, I mean, the way that Glenn Phillips plays, it's going to come off sometimes, and sometimes it's not. It didn't, but everyone else did, so no worries.
And we had enough in the bank that he could actually come and have a go, and because there's no point him trying to go run a ball, in overs 14, 15, 16, you might as well try put more and more on the board, knowing that you have someone like Jimmy Neesham who will come in after you, who thought, let's go hard, and hit a 6 off his first ball.
Yeah. And off the last ball as well, just to sort of nicely round out the innings. Yeah, I loved it. I like hearing the commentator be like, 6 will give him 200, and then it was like, boom, 6, called it.
Yes, that's what I like to call bookending your innings.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So he got 26 off 13, and those additional 20-odd runs, you thought, oh, thank goodness New Zealand got those. We really needed to get over 200, and put on as many.
Yeah, which maybe we didn't, but 200 is just such a psychological barrier, isn't it? And I think that the extra pressure really sort of meant that Australia felt like they had to go from the start, and led to some of those silly dismissals that we saw, like David Warner, lol.
Yeah, that was coming. Was it like bat pad, bat wicket?
Yeah.
Couldn't happen to a nicer bloke.
Yeah, you love to see it because, he's a douchebag. And I'm sorry, but he is.
He is. So he comes and goes when Australia come out to bowl. Finch continuing with struggles. It looked like he was going to actually find some form coming into this tournament. He had some good warm-up games, but he went for 13, bowled by Mitchell Santner there, caught by Kane Williamson. So we sound like every single cricket outlet in the world, but Aaron Finch got to find some form.
Yeah. I thought Santner bowled really cleverly, though. You could see the way he took 2 wickets, and both of them, he set them up. They both times sort of the way he got Finch was sort of that playing inside out, right? And he got Andre like that, and then Santner bowled one that just followed him and cramped him up a little bit more, and he couldn't get enough behind it. And then same for the way he got out. Is it Tim David?
Later in the innings, yeah.
just playing across the line again, sort of, forced him into a shot that he didn't need to play. And that's the beauty of when you've got 200 runs, you can sort of set these traps and say, yeah, have a hit, go. There's a gap there if you can take it on.
A lot of criticism for Mitchell Santner. People seem to not like him that much, but I actually think he's a pretty good bowler.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Santner, especially in shorter format cricket. I think he's a good T20 bowler, and I think he's a really smart cricketer. He seems to sort of figure batsmen out, and he reminds me a little bit of Daniel Vettori in that way. That like Daniel Vettori towards the end of his career didn't really turn the ball a whole lot, but he had enough sort of guile and wits about him that he could get most people out. And I think Santner is developing a similar sort of skill.
Yeah, absolutely. Because he got out Marcus Stoinis.
Oh, yes.
But he got out Marcus Stoinis with a screamer of a catch from Glenn Phillips. This will be the catch of the tournament.
Yeah. It's going to be on all the highlight reels. It was phenomenal.
It was like... He hits the ball, Stoinis hits the ball, and Glenn Phillips comes like running from like 10 metres and just takes off and dives and catches it in his hands and then stands up like, oh yes, I just took this catch. This is the guy that dropped 4 catches in Christchurch.
He went like horizontal as well. Like that was just parallel to the floor. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I mean, I personally jumped up, ran around screaming, what a catch 4 times, and my flatmate who has no interest in cricket, doesn't like cricket, it was like, oh yes, that was a very good catch grab.
Very good catch grab.
She calls it
the technical term for a catch grab. I was a little more restrained because I had 2 daughters who were sleeping, so I was just that yes, just kind of pulling it back, reining it in, just because I don't want to wake the house up. In fact, in the first innings, I was reading Harry Potter to my daughter whilst I had the cricket in one ear. And so, like I said, I had my phone sort of beside me in bed while I was reading, and sometimes I just find myself glancing down towards it as exciting things were happening, and Eden would go, "Dad, you stopped reading. Come on." And I was like, "Oh, sorry. Oh, yes." And then Harry said to Ron,
and when you're like, 10 points to Glenn Phillips.
He'd certainly make my Quidditch team, I'll tell you that.
Me too, actually. He'd be a good, what do they call it, the seeker?
I don't know if he's got the build for a seeker. But, if he's going to take catches like that, then, the snitch has got no chance.
So once Glenn Phillips makes that catch, New Zealand just kept picking off these batsmen. You thought Maxwell and Cummins might come through and do something because they are dangerous players, but those two only getting up into the 20s. While watching the game, watching Australia, there's always that little bit of fear that someone's going to go big.
Yeah, there is. And I felt it at times. But they were just too far behind from the start. And I think like the pressure of, it being there at home, all that expectation on them, they would have been favourites going into that game. Just didn't come right for them on the night.
No, Mitch Marsh actually came out today and said that they felt like they were on the back foot from the start and they just could not recover. So that was what the World Cup hero of 2021 thought about our Black Caps.
Yeah, they're pretty good. They bowled really well too. It's kind of easy to bowl well when things are going right and you've got 200 on the board and stuff like that. But still, they had to keep it tight, and I was really impressed with Tim Southee, who obviously know his class. 3 for 6 off 2.1 overs, but then also Ferguson, who's kind of been in and out of the team. He's always had that express pace, but he's really worked on his accuracy over the last couple of years, and he just seemed like he was really difficult to score off of. Relentless pressure.
Yeah, it really was, because it was also 2 wickets for Trent Boult, 3 for Mitchell Santner, 1 apiece for Ferguson and Southee. So it was all over, all through the team.
Effort.
Complete team effort. So New Zealand go 1 up after that Wow. That was a great
Don't
fist
mention super overs, Renee. It's still a sore point.
It's still it's like ingrained in me. New Zealand go 1 up after the first weekend of the Super 12 tournament. So big question is, do New Zealand make any changes for their upcoming games? They play Afghanistan, Sri Lanka and England all within the next week.
Yeah, look, you wouldn't change much, would you? If if a team's going really well like that, like you want to sort of minimise any sort of disruptions. My only thing is maybe sort of you want to make sure your bowlers are still fresh. So do you look at bringing in like Milne for somebody to give somebody a rest? Aside from that, like I'd keep it the same if it were me.
Yeah, I think I would bring in Milne probably for Ferguson. I know both those players have struggled with injuries, so you'd want to probably rotate these two across the tournament so they actually are both fresh, fit, but also still have some game time. I mean, we talked about last week, Adam Milne didn't play for months. You know, he had a game in March and then came back for that try series, so you can't just rest him and hope that he comes right should Ferguson or Bolt or Southee go out. We will also be keeping an eye on whether Daryl Mitchell becomes fit anytime soon. He of course has that fractured finger. You'd think he would come in to replace Marc Chapman.
Yeah, I mean, would you you probably are not going to rush somebody back against Afghanistan,
No.
but maybe we might see him later in the tournament.
Yeah, he might come in for that England game. I mean, he is a firecracker. He comes in and just goes big, whether he's been playing recently or whether he is, coming off a big rest. I mean, this is the guy who came out and scored 3 centuries in Test across the summer, so I don't think you'd be particularly concerned that Daryl Mitchell is out of form. Yeah,
he's become pretty important to the Black Caps team, in the last sort of year.
I absolutely rate him. I think he could have a really great future. I think he's a leader as well. So I actually want him back in the team just because I think he's a better cricketer than poor Marc Chapman.
Yeah, poor Marc Chapman. He's fine.
I mean, Marc Chapman's biggest investment in this game was the hug that he gave Glenn Phillips after Glenn Phillips got the catch.
Important role, though.
Important role.
Taking care of Glenn Phillips.
Hype
Don't underestimate that.
Amazing. Okay, so as we said, New Zealand go 1 up in their pool game. We did mention net run rate. So New Zealand came out of that game with a net run rate of plus 4.450, which is bonkers.
Yep. And I, the whole time during that game, it was net run rate. It was just playing in the back of my mind thinking man, if we can win big here, it will really set us up. And so I'm really, really glad that came true. Especially with England, they won, but they're only on, 0.6?
Yeah.
And of course, Australia massively in the negative. You love to see that.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And as we alluded to last week, net run rate could determine who goes through. Of course, we all remember back to 2019 when the Black Caps made the semi-finals over Pakistan because of net run rate. And they were saying the other night that they've seen it go down to 3 or 4 decimal points of who goes through. So, yes, that pool looking very interesting at the moment. Now, we have only talked New Zealand, Australia, but I know that Marc, that guy who sometimes hosts the podcast, he would.
I mean, the question is, will listeners want him back next week after this?
He's already texted and asked if I want him back. We haven't even started recording. No, I do have to just point out that England did play Afghanistan this week, and Sam Curran took a 5 against Afghanistan, restricting them to 112. So the English bowlers, 1 or 2 of them looking on fire. Whether it will be the Sam Curran tournament, but you know what? I would actually prefer that my bowling wickets were spread.
Yeah, true. It was it's great to see everyone chipping in for the Black Caps. So I didn't watch the England game. I don't know how it went. I saw the result, obviously, but it took them 18.1 overs to get to 112. So I mean, I guess they didn't need to go fast, but they clearly didn't want to make a statement or anything.
Again, comes back to net run rate. Meanwhile, some other great games across the tournament as well, because we love the World Cup. Of course, a great game between India and Pakistan. Bangladesh played the Netherlands, and the game between South Africa and Zimbabwe was rained out, so they will share a point. So for all coverage of the T20 World Cup, we are going hard over on our socials. You can follow us at Back of a Length on Twitter, Instagram, and we are on Facebook as well. Well, Richard, you've come to the Back of a Link podcast, which means you have to participate in our final segment of the show, which is the first 11 of the week. And you helped make half of these first 11, so you have to love it.
Yeah, I can't remember any of them, but let's. What do you got for us this week?
That is the beauty of the first 11 book. You can't actually remember making most of them. Always a surprise. So this week we've gone back to one of our themes from last season, where the first 11 is made out of names, or like pun names or play on names. So we've gone for a first 11 of animal names. So in at 1, he may not be able to find form for Australia, but I'm sure he would do well in our first 11. It is Aaron Finch.
Yes.
And at 2, we have Dickie Bird. And at 3, Martin Crow. I do realise these first 3 are all bird related.
Lots of bird ones.
Yeah. And at 4, we have Alan Lamb. And at 5, Brad Hogg. And at 6, Christian Leopard. And at 7, Jack Russell. And at 8, Jack Leach. And at 9, Nathan Lyon. And at 10, we have Jackson Bird. And in at 11, Kemar Roach.
Great Roach. Ah, yes.
Is it all coming back to you now?
Yeah, I love Jack Russell because it's just we've got the full breed in there.
Yes, it's a dog breed.
Yeah,
and so he plays basically captain, I think.
Do you know? Like what I was thinking as well, watching Australia, another good 11 would be sort of 2 first names, because we had like Tim David in there, and I'm obviously like a Richard Matthews, so you won't know the pain of this, Renee. But I regularly get called Matthew by people who aren't paying attention. So, and I bet that Tim regularly gets called David. It just struck me while I was watching him play.
I'm so glad you said that. We actually do have a full first 11 of 2 first names. So you know what, if you can guess any of the players, drop us a note on one of the socials and we'll see if your first 11 matches our first 11. Alright, that is our wrap of the T20 following week and what is coming up in the T20 World Cup this week. I nearly called you Marc.
Yeah, no, I mean I wish I was in this accomplished podcaster as Marc, but you know, you're stuck with me this week.
I'm stuck with you, but thank you so much, Richard, for joining us this week. It has been such a pleasure having you here.
Oh, man, it's been good to catch up, Renee, and I am so hyped for this Cricket World Cup, man. It's going to be fun.
It is going to be great. Huge action of week coming up this week. Can we see a better catch than Glenn Phillips? Will we have more firecracker bowling from someone like Ferguson? Or will we have another collapse like Australia?
Yeah, will we see Australia bundled out before the knockout stage?
Ooh,
we can only hope.
You said it, not me. We will bring you more action from the World Cup both here next week and on all our socials, as we said, at Back of a Link, Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. But until next time, have a great week.